Talking baseball, baseball and the
Welcome back, Birdland, to another episode of the Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Benny Becker. Thrilled as always, gang, to be back here, sitting down, talking Baltimore Orioles baseball with all of you. So excited for today's episode. A lot of good things to talk about. A lot of exciting topics to talk about. We're going to be recapping the Jays series. Talk about our takeaways from that series. Talk about the return of the Homer hose that we've been calling for weeks now. Things to feel positive about, which certainly in Birdland right now, we need all the positive vibes and positive things we can think of at the moment. Coby Mayo update and plenty more also in this episode, gang. Very excited for it. A lot of good stuff coming your way. Before we jump into it, though, make sure you head to our Instagram and TikTok and X and follow us at Talkin Orioles Baseball. We're going to have a lot of good stuff coming this way, and this is also the way that we can interact, gang. Comments, questions, we will post them up on the show and interact with you guys. Just bring it on to me and I'll talk about it, gang. A lot of good stuff, though, in this episode. I know a lot of Orioles fans are probably wondering why I'm so optimistic and positive about these Orioles right now. What could I possibly be optimistic and positive about these Orioles right now? Well, there is plenty, gang. And that's why we named today's episode Optimism. O-ptimism. Emphasis on the O there, obviously, for our birds. But I really think there's a lot of optimism in the air and a lot of good things coming our way, gang. So we just have to stick through this rough patch. We just got to stick with the process, just like the team's doing right now. You hear these guys talking about having to stick with the process, not change their identity, change who they are, not panicking. That's kind of what we need to do as well as Orioles fans, all right? So take a deep breath, Birdland. Take a deep breath. Exhale it, and let's get on with the episode, all right? Very exciting one on our hands. So we're going to start today nowhere else but recapping the Blue Jays series. Was supposed to be a 3-game set, got rained out into a 2-game set. First game got rescheduled for a doubleheader on July 29th. You know how I always talk about loving doubleheaders. And now I have something on my schedule to try and get down to Baltimore for July 29th. Obviously, I'll be trying to get there way before July 29th for games, but I love the idea of doing a day-night doubleheader, hitting both games, even though you're going to have to buy both tickets for both games. It is what it is, gang. I'm very excited, and I'm hoping to be able to pull it off this season. But let's jump in to what ended up being Game 1. Was supposed to be Game 2, ended up being Game 1. Orioles end up winning the game 5-4, and at first, it did not look like that would be the outcome. Orioles fell behind 3-0 after 3 innings. Ended up scoring 2 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, taking that 5-3 lead that ultimately was enough to get the job done at 5-4. Tomoyuki Sagano started the game 4 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 2 walks, so allowing base runners, but we've seen that from him. No strikeouts on the day, but only 3 earned runs. Looked a little shaky, especially early on. It was very similar to his first start, which was also against the Blue Jays, where it felt like maybe he was a little too nervous or amped up or whatever it may have been. Seemed a little off at times. It was his first home start, and certainly those nerves could have been similar to that first start in the majors just a couple weeks ago. Offense, though, only had 5 hits, 2 of which, though, did go for home runs. The home runs seem to be back. It's something we'll talk about more in this episode. We know runners in scoring position has not been an Orioles' strength at this point in the season. Still, in that Game 1, they were 2 for 3, so they took advantage of the opportunities when they had them. The 6th started out with 2 outs. That's really where the game changed. Again, the Orioles put up 3 in that 6th inning, okay? And I want to highlight that 6th inning because, one, it might show a little luck the Orioles got, but also it shows just how they continued grinding. So again, it started off with 2 outs between Jackson and Gunnar leading off the inning, each with an out. But then Adley had a solo home run to tie the game at 3-3. Ryan O'Hearn then walked, advanced to second on the wild pitch. Jordan Westberg had a single, still ruled a single, on a ground ball that was in the hole to short. It was a nice play by Bichette, truly. Not only to get there and corral it, but to make a great throw to first. Vlad was not able to come up with the ball on the stretch. Wound up sitting about 3 inches in front of him as he's in a full stretch on the dirt. Westy may have beaten it out. I'm not positive. I don't think anybody is. Whether Westy would have beat that out or not. Certainly, if he wasn't going to beat it out, you would expect it to have been ruled an error, which means that at least the scorekeepers expected Westy to maybe beat that out. Either way, I think he may have wound up being out had Vlad been able to secure Bichette's throw. Either way, it would have been close. And it was a big breaking point because the next at-bat, Mullins hits an extra base hit. I have down double. I could have sworn it was a triple. Either way, scoring 2 on the play, taking a 5-3 lead at that point. Again, the 5 runs were enough to seal the deal in that game, luckily. And again, we may have gotten lucky with that Westberg single. It felt almost early in the season like we had a lot of bad luck. In fact, I know we had a lot of bad luck early in the season. Statistically, it shows. And in that moment, it somewhat felt like, hey, this is turning around on us. We're now getting ourselves out of that bad luck. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know. And after we talk about the next game, it's maybe even more in question. But defensively, the Orioles wound up turning 5 double plays in the game. Bullpen had another great day. Aiken only came in for 1 batter, zeros all around. Brian Baker then came in after him for a whole inning, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 K, 1 earned run. It was actually the first earned run Brian Baker has allowed all season. That's how good he's been. He's been one of the best relievers in baseball, not just on the Orioles. Yanier Cano came in after that. 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, zeros across the board after that. Gregory Soto, who we'll mention again in the next game breakdown, 1 inning pitched, 1 strikeout, no hits, no walks, no earned runs in general. And then the big moment was really Felix Bautista coming in, not for the first time this season, but for the first time in a save opportunity. The Orioles, up to that point, had not had a save opportunity yet. They were the only team in baseball not to have a save opportunity at that point in the season. Bautista pitches the 1 inning, didn't allow a hit, but did walk 2 batters, struck out 1, ended up closing out the game for the first save of the year, not just for him, but for the Orioles as well. Phenomenal seeing Felix get the job done. Obviously, you don't want to see him walking 2 guys, but no hits. He still has been a tough guy to hit. Certainly in that home opener in Camden Yards against the Sox, things got a little iffy. They were hitting him a little. His accuracy was not there. But he's still working himself back, gang. We need to give Felix a little bit of time to get back to himself. And we don't need him right now to be the best Felix Bautista. If he can get to that point at the end of the year, September, playoffs, October, that's when we need to see the best Felix Bautista. So it's okay that he's just working himself back. And it was great to see, 1, the Orioles just get a save opportunity. 2, to see him close it out. And 3, to have that man closing it out be the Mountain Felix Bautista. So let's jump to game 2. 7-6 loss. It ended up being in extra innings. Certainly, this game could have gone either way. It was a game I called on last episode that was going to be a slugfest. So the fact that it was 7-6 is certainly no surprise for me. It wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to happen, drawing it up. But also, listen, I bet the Orioles every day, certainly in the loss. That didn't win me money, but I also bet the over in that game because, again, I just saw runs coming. Both sides getting runs that day. And that was the case. So it was a game, though, where the Orioles had all of the momentum and they just let it slip away, gang. Very frustrating day, as we'll get into. It was also very indicative of kind of what this season has been for us so far. You know, you think that maybe they break through. They get maybe a little lucky the night before, a comeback victory, vibes are high going into that next game. And we're going to talk. Vibes stayed high early, and then it's like you think that they kind of had it figured out and had it broken through that tough, rough stretch to begin the year, only for it to come right back to you. And we've been used to that on a game-to-game basis, like one game really good, it looks like they broke through, the next game or two, they have it slip away and they look bad again. This game, it was in the exact same game. So that was frustrating that it all happened within a few innings of each other. But let's just jump into the game a little, because certainly there's some stuff to talk about on this game. The Orioles end up putting up a run in each of the first 4 innings, but the Jays also got a run in the second and the third. So after 4 innings, we were sitting at 4-2. The Jays end up putting up 1 in the 6th, to which the Orioles instantly answered with 2 in the bottom of the 6th, making it a 6-3 game. We have it for the taking, gang. And certainly it was like that after the 7th as well. So headed into the 8th inning, we're still looking at 6-3. Now, again, let's break down a little bit of that 6th inning. Not as much maybe, but the Jays did have back-to-back errors, which resulted in the Orioles 2 runs. It was very reminiscent of the night before, because the 2 errors were caused by Bichette on a misplay on a ground ball, and then Vlad Guerrero with a misplay on a ground ball. Both probably should be made. Definitely Bichette should be made, and I think the Vlad play also should be made. He kind of got crossed up a little. Maybe the ball took a little weird hop on him. I didn't see an angle that showed that, but listen, he is a at least average, if not very good at times, defensive first baseman. He's had a tough stretch to start the year defensively, but still a play that you expect to make. I mean, he was right on top of the ball, and this thing just bounced over him. So the Orioles do get lucky in that sense, and wound up putting up their 5th and 6th runs on it. But that's when it all started to turn the opposite way. Again, it was the 8th inning. We were headed into that, still up 6-3, and the 8th inning is when it started to fall apart. So Gregory Soto came in, and certainly it was not his best outing. Before we get into what happened, I just want to recap that. Listen, I live and grew up right outside of Philadelphia, so I see a lot of Phillies games despite my love for the Orioles and how much I watch the Orioles. So when we got Dominguez and Soto last year, I knew there was a lot of potential there, but you also had seen a lot of inconsistencies. And Soto, more than even Dominguez, was just an inconsistent machine for the Phillies, despite great stuff. So coming over, when we traded for them, all these Phillies fans were like, oh, just wait. Oh, you're not going to enjoy that. And for the most part, we have enjoyed it. We have enjoyed both of them. They've been great additions to this bullpen. But this was not Soto's best day. This was one of those bad Soto days. Kind of reminded me of actually his first Orioles appearance. And then after that point last season, he was great for us. But that first game was very shaky. And that's what this one was. So Soto comes in, gives up a lead-off double, follows it by a wild pitch, followed by another double, which drove in the run, followed by a single, followed by a sac bunt for the first out of the inning. Then gave up an RBI ground out. Getting the second out, there was no play on the lead runners at second and third. So then we take out Soto, bring in Cano. Cano gives up an RBI single immediately to Bo Bichette. That ties the game at 6-6. So the Orioles bullpen faltered for really the first time all season. But one could argue this was one of the only times all season that this team came in with like a normal kind of lead, the type of lead where you need your bullpen to shut down teams. And given it wasn't a one-run game, it was a three-run game, so there is a margin for error. But unfortunately, Orioles used that margin up, and the game winds up getting tied 6-6. Felt like it might get back to us, though, in the ninth. So when the Jays were batting Santander, which, first off, let's just say it was great to see him back at Camden Yards. He even had a home run in this series, I believe. He had a good series. Felt good being back at Camden Yards, I bet. But it was weird seeing him in a Jays uniform, and he led off that inning with a double. He ends up getting pinch run for, and at first you're like, oh man, this is completely getting away from us. But then we wind up essentially picking the man off at second, trying to wind up getting to third eventually. Adley with a great play, but also Gunnar with a great play. Adley smart enough to just gun it right down to second when he saw the guy off the bag. Gunnar, smart enough, comes up on the play, probably about 5-6 feet into the infield to take the throw early to then make a very awkward throw off his right leg. Perfect throw to third base to get out the runner. That was a big moment. At that point, it felt like, hey, we got this back. Especially when you then get out the next two batters. You're going to the bottom of the ninth, tied. You think you have a real shot. Then Adley Rutschman, with one out, hits a double, gets himself on second. Orioles pinch run for him. Unfortunately, though, the Orioles can't really do anything off it. O'Hearn gets a strikeout next, and then Westberg hit a little blooper to shallow right center. All three guys, the right fielder, center fielder, second baseman, all converging on the ball. Looked like for a second they were all going to smack each other, maybe all dive into each other with the game on the line. Ultimately, the right fielder dove, caught the ball. Neither of the other two guys collided with them. They stayed out of their way. So, unfortunately, the Orioles cannot walk it off in that moment. And they didn't really get another chance. Well, they did get another chance, but they didn't end up capitalizing on that one either. The Jays wound up getting one in the 10th, whereas the Orioles went down 1-2-3 in their bottom of the 10th, leaving the tying run on third after he was advanced by Mullins on the first at bat of that 10th. They lose a game they should have won, gang. And there's a lot to be disappointed about that. The O's did get two more home runs, which is nice to see. The power coming back, the home runs coming, because that's what this lineup is really built on, gang. It's necessary. And it would be very easy to try and blame Gregory Soto for it, and we're going to get more on this, but the umpiring on that loss, I mean, sure, they both can take accountability. Ultimately, though, a single statistic shows what the real blame is. And that is the Orioles going 0 for 13 with runners in scoring position, leaving 8 guys on base. That's ultimately what happened, gang. The Orioles can just have one hit in that position, drive in one of those 8 guys. Odds are we're not headed to extras. Odds are we win that game. That's the thing. We talked just the night before. They took advantage of only 3 opportunities with runners in scoring position. This time, we have 13 and can't get a single hit on one of them. Again, I believe the errors, listen, you can talk the errors, factor into that where it was still kind of successful, but also doesn't count for a hit. Listen, you want to sugarcoat it. You know I'm the biggest optimist there is, and we're going to be a lot of optimism on this show coming up. But this is not the moment where I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to be realistic and just say that's not good enough. And the Orioles players would tell you, coaches would tell you, that isn't good enough. Povich had another good start, but certainly not eye-popping statistics by any means. Only 4 2/3, 7 hits, 1 walk, 2 Ks, 2 earned runs. So got in and out of jams continually, which is something that we, one, have seen a lot from him, but 2 should kind of expect from him. Similar to Sagano. These aren't major swing and miss kind of guys. These aren't the blow past you kind of guys. They're finesse pitchers. They're pitch to contact guys. Well, when you pitch to contact, some guys are going to get on. We still see that walk number being phenomenal. I believe that was only Povic's third walk in his 3 starts. So not putting guys on with walks, making them beat you. And unfortunately, like we saw in the Royals series previously, sometimes you keep the ball too much in the heart of the plate, and making them beat you isn't that hard for major league hitters if you're going to put it right down the middle. They're going to probably beat you a lot. But if then you can work yourself out of jams, find ways to work the corners, you have some success. And frankly, Povich did again have some success. He only threw 76 pitches, and you can't help but wonder what could have been if kept in. Now, you might be yelling about Brandon Hyde in that. That's not even Hyde. Certainly, maybe, who knows? There might have been a text or a comment at some point said. But Hyde had been ejected at that point. So that's not even Hyde doing necessarily. And you can't help but wonder maybe what if. Okay? And when I say that, I mean that, like I said, we brought Brian Baker in for a single hitter. It was Bo Bichette with 2 men on, so it makes sense. You want to then throw the righty in there. Okay, I get it. But Keegan Aiken was then brought in for the entire 6th inning, which, in theory, had Povich been able to get out of that inning, been kept in, and gotten Bichette out, maybe he would have been in for that instead of Keegan Aiken. Which then means, potentially, maybe, instead of Soto in the 8th, it would have been Keegan Aiken. Which possibly then would have resulted in different results. Now, maybe that's unfair. Because Soto has been great this season. Aiken's just been all right. So there's a decent chance in that high leverage situation, Soto would have gotten the call instead of Aiken. There's also the thought that maybe the Orioles would have given Soto the day off had they not had to go to the bullpen as early and often as they did in that game. Can't help but wonder. It's a bunch of what ifs, and who knows? It didn't go our way that day. And it was a game that they absolutely could have and should have won. Now, there might be some other reasons to blame. Like we said, the umpiring in that game was atrocious and certainly could be pointed to as a reason to not win that game. Maybe a reason why the runners in scoring position was so bad. Maybe a reason why we left so many guys on base. I mean, you're getting strike 3 calls that are balls in those positions. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You don't want your guys chasing balls. You want them to have a good idea of the zone and good discipline. Also, at times, listen, you sometimes need to adjust. We don't have robot umps right now. Maybe next year we will. For now, you have to understand with 2 strikes, this ump has been very lenient, especially lenient against us. And then maybe you open your zone a bit. Maybe you start slashing at balls that you know are balls, but you think they're going to get called strikes. It's tough. It's tough in that moment. Obviously, it's such a beyond split-second decision. And again, you don't want to change who you are. You don't want to overreact to too much too early. So I get it. I do get it. Now, what are the takeaways, though, from that Jays series? Okay, well, in many ways, we could have been swept in that series. Again, we talked about the errors by the Blue Jays. There was a lot that if they just played good defense, they might have won both those games. But in many ways, we could have swept them easily. I mean, we took game 1. When they were up, we came back. We won that game. We had the lead pretty much the entire way through that second ball game. And in game 2, again, we talked about the umps, or we mentioned the umps. Now we'll dig more into it. In game 2, umpire John Bacon didn't help the Orioles case at all. He really didn't. And I'm one of the last people that will go, oh, like this ump screwed us and cost us this game. But when the numbers show what they're about to show to you, you can't help but feel that's the case, gang. So in that game too, John Bacon, had 17 missed calls in the entire game, 14 of which went against the Orioles. In the first 3 innings, he had 8 missed calls, all of which against the Orioles. This is what led to Brandon Hyde's ejection at that point, because Jordan Westburg struck out for a second time on a second ball that was not in the zone, was low, and was called a strike. And it's tough. This ump is kind of squeezing you, really calling the game not fair. Listen, if the umpire is going to call it fair both ways, that's all these teams ask. Obviously, you'd want a perfect zone. But you understand people, listen, they might be a little off. They might not be perfect. Most people aren't going to be perfect. Very rarely is an umpire perfect in a game. But if you're calling, let's say, low in the zone, both ways, okay, now everybody knows. And both teams can take advantage of it. In this case, he was just calling mainly bad calls against the Orioles. And that sucks, gang. Other reasons why it could have been a sweep one way or another in this series was shoddy defense from the Jays, like we said, potentially cost them one game and nearly cost them both games. Better starting pitching from the Orioles, hit me if you've heard that before, could have potentially made the difference in the game. This is now 3 straight games where a starter has pitched less than 5 innings. That's not what you want to see, and we're going to touch more on that soon and the implications of that, which could be very bad. Certainly the O's had chances to pile on, especially in that game too, and could not do it. Again, 0 for 13. 8 guys left on. Also, you wonder if Bautista could pitch back-to-back games. Who knows what could have happened? Maybe the Orioles, if they were just open to maybe pitching him back-to-back games, would have sent him out in the 10th inning. Maybe at that point, the Jays don't get a run in the 10th. Who knows? Maybe that momentum then gets us a run in the 10th. Or we at least go to an 11th inning. I don't know. You never know. Heck, Bautista could have let up the run too, especially the way he's pitched early. And I don't think forcing him into that situation for this game is the smart decision. I truly don't. I think being able to have him take his time and ramp up and lead up to these things. Heck, we're not going to see that at all this season, gang. At least from what we've heard. So there's no reason to get up in arms about being like, well, if Bautista could have played back-to-back games, okay, maybe in September and October we can start yelling about that. In April, that ain't the time, gang. That ain't the time to take that stand. It is good to see the power have come back. And again, we're about to touch on that more. But that's another positive and a sign that these Orioles could have taken both of these games. Again, they had their opportunities. The power seemed to have been back. One of those home runs or another home run being when some guys were on would have led to another win. It just feels, though, like better baseball is brewing, gang. And is really right around the corner for this Orioles team. Again, I'm an eternal optimist. Am I speaking with my heart? Yeah, probably. But I also believe I'm speaking with my head. I watch all of these games. I watch damn near every pitch every season. Even if I'm working, I have the game on in front of me at work. I will literally not do a task to wait to see a pitch throw. Like, I hope my bosses don't hear this, but that's the truth, gang. Not that they couldn't see it if they were watching. But neither here or there. I really do feel like this team is just about to get over that hump, to get past all of this tough, rough patch that they've been in to start this season. Team seems like they're on the verge of really breaking through. And I don't necessarily have stats that I'm going to throw at you to back these feelings. It is just a gut feeling that things are turning around for this team. Things are starting to come together more for this team. And we've talked about many times how reinforcements are going to be coming at some point. Mainly for the pitching staff, but also with Cole and Cowser eventually coming back. Just a lot of good things are coming, gang. And we're right on the verge, and I'm really hoping, starting tomorrow, since we're off tonight, we'll finally start seeing good baseball consistently from this team. Because we're right there. We're right there. All right, so as predicted on the last episode, we did get the return of the Homer Hose this past series. We said coming back home, we were supposed to be back the first homestand, and it was not. Coming back home after that 6-game road trip, we really felt like it would be back. And finally, the Orioles get back their hydration station. Apparently, the old one was full of mold when they went to grab it this season out of some closet or whatever. It was all moldy. So they needed a new one, gang. We don't want our guys drinking moldy water and getting sick. We cannot afford more IL stints, especially for mold. So had to wait for that. And the new one just got delivered, and it was set up this past weekend for the Jays series. And as we predicted, not only would the Homer Hose be back, but with the Homer Hose would come back the homers. And we got 4 in this Jays series, 2 apiece in each of the games. Obviously, we didn't take both games because of it, but still, it just felt great. 1, to be hitting home runs again, and 2, to see the Homer Hose back. Quote, it's been a huge part of who we are. That's what the guys were saying. The Homer Hose was just a part of all of this. We know they have new celebrations with the Wet Willie at first, the fishing at second and third, but the Homer Hose was the last piece missing, and it just seems huge for the team vibes, which is necessary to keep high, considering the lack of consistent winning so far this season. All right, so what are some positives we can find? This is finding the positives. I don't know how to pronounce it the way I have it spelled, but I just liked how it was. So first, we're going to start with the man behind the plate. Adley does seem to be back, currently on an 8-game hitting streak. His batting line is .259 average, .344 on base, and a .463 slugging. Much closer to the stats that we've been used to seeing Adley Rutschman before last year when he went in the tubes in the second half. And he's really just missed a few home runs. There have been a couple moments where you really thought he got one and tagged one, and it did not get out. Certainly, he does have a couple this year. And it seems like he has lowered his launch angle. Maybe last year he was getting a little too power happy. I think a lot of these guys were because, 1, they weren't getting on base much, so they really had to make every hit count. But 2, because of the pitching staff and the injuries and everybody trying to pick each other up, it really did feel like, again, they were just trying to do too much. They were trying to make every hit count for a home run. And I think Adley got a little too power happy. He's been known to do that at times. Still has a very big power swing at times, but seems to mostly have lowered that launch angle to get better contact, more consistent contact, and it's showing. He also is walking more and striking out less, which is phenomenal to see, because that's one of Adley Rutschman's mainstays to his game. Like, the idea that he has a great batter's eye, he's not going to chase a whole lot, he's going to walk a decent amount, and he's going to stay getting on base. That's one of the reasons why you have him at the top of the lineup consistently, and it's great to see. Overall, he just looks more comfortable in the box and with his approach. Again, with the longer or the higher launch angle with last year was also him really grinding. Again, it didn't look like he was comfortable in that box. Looked like he was all over the place mentally, and that really affected his approach. I think this year he's a lot more confident. He's worked way through that, and it feels good seeing Adley Rutschman come back to Adley Rutschman. Meanwhile, Cedric Mullins is that guy, another guy to be very positive about. This could be a magic contract year. You see that at times. It's something we've talked about with Ryan O'Hearn potentially being the case this season, and I still think could be the case this season. Cedric Mullins may be the guy actually to make the biggest leap in that contract year, because he seems to have turned back the clock on his career a bit. Not that he didn't have a good last year, especially second half. He was like the only one who had a good second half. But it just seems the past few years he's kind of taken ticks down a little bit. Last year got himself a little higher, I guess, than he had been the previous couple years. But certainly since 2021, when he had his 30-30 year, he seems to have ticked down a little. This year, his batting line is .277 average, .414 on base, and a .553 slugging. He has 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, and a weighted runs created of 184, which, again, we always tell you, 100 is absolutely average. So if you have that weighted stats, it's literally on 100 is average. I believe maybe 200's the max, and 0's the lowest you can go. And depending on where you are. So he's 84 percentage points essentially over the average of runs created in this league. And it's one of these stats that gets measured through everybody in the league, not just your individual stats. So that's phenomenal to see. Cedric has been having himself a year. Not only has he been the Orioles' best hitter so far, but really he might be the best center fielder so far in baseball this year, statistic-wise. Another great thing to see also is his sprint speed. It's something we talked about last year, how it had been decreasing. His sprint speed this year is the fastest since 2020, 28.6 feet per second, if that means anything to you. Again, it's his best sprint speed since 2020. He's top 10% in MLB, so he's got elite speed still, and it's phenomenal to see. The exit velocity, or average exit velocity of 89.7 is just around league average, but as far as Cedric goes, it's a career high for him. And you want to talk about career highs, his walk rate, 15.5, is at a career high. His strikeout rate of 17.2 is at a career low. It could just be a small sample size, and maybe all these numbers are going to revert back to his averages. It's possible. But it could be that Mullins is in the early stages of the best season of his career. And the fact that we see all of these metrics up, his average exit velocity, his sprint speed, his K rate, his walk rate, all of these metrics in a positive direction leads me to believe it might not just be the small sample size. It might not just be an anomaly. It might actually be the player he pretty much is this year, which again, might be the best Cedric Mullins anybody has ever seen. Time will tell, but it's certainly possible that Cedric is headed towards another 30-30 year like that 2021 season. And that would just be absolutely enormous for these Orioles, especially with Colton Cowser on the IL for a couple months. Allowing Cedric to really just take that center field spot and not have to take off against lefties and, you know what I mean, and put in backup third string center fielder, whether it be Mateo, we've seen that, Laureano, and his bat hasn't been great, whoever it may be. It's just nice that Cedric Mullins can pretty much live in center field for this team if he continues these metrics. Another reason to be optimistic is while the starters have not had positive numbers as a whole, at least we've seen glimpses of competency. Now, you might be looking at me going, I don't want competency. Like, that's not what I'm hoping for. Excellency. Well, we knew coming into this year, this staff, especially where it is right now with the injuries, didn't have a real ace on it. There wasn't that exceptional pitcher, that guy that really made you feel like, oh, he's going to dominate every 5 days. Again, it's a lot of pitch to contact, a lot of finesse that we have in this rotation right now. And while it hasn't always been there, we've seen the signs. Eflin has looked great through 3 starts before his injury, and hopefully, just like last year, it's only a couple weeks until he comes back fully healthy and ready to roll. Sagano seems to have what it takes and should just continue feeling more and more comfortable, and that's going to allow him to really be able to be consistently competent. All right? Povich needs to go deeper into games, but seems like he's taken that next step. And certainly there's another step or two he needs to take. But just like we talked about in this last start, he seems to have figured out a way to work himself out of jams. Really keep his mental positive, keep focusing on the task at hand, not getting overwhelmed when things aren't necessarily going his way or guys are getting on base. And it seems like Povich may be able to continue taking steps to be consistently competent. Charlie Morton, I believe, should be able to make the adjustments to be that guy that's consistently competent. We haven't necessarily seen it from Charlie yet, but I'm hopeful because the thing about these veteran major league pitchers, especially a guy like Charlie Morton, who's been in the game for so long and had so many experts and great coaches tweak and give him advice throughout his career, you know your body very well, and you know that it's just a tiny little adjustment that you need to get comfortable with or adjust with. That once you can turn that on, you're going to be able to consistently give you competent starts. Is that going to be the case for all of these guys? Probably not. But like we've talked about, reinforcements will get here eventually. And we have to figure out who's going to stick and who's not. Now, the last thing really to be positive about is the bullpen has been carrying the load for this pitching staff so far. Even after yesterday's bad outing, they're still above average in essentially every category that's important when it comes to bullpens. And even with handling Felix with kid gloves and missing one key member of the bullpen in Kittredge, at least one, if you want to count Suarez or one of the other injured guys like Wells or Rogers or whoever it may be, they're still pitching really, really well. We know Cionel Perez has had his troubles, and not everybody has been dominant this year either, but for the most part, outside of Cionel Perez, this bullpen has looked amazing. Now, there is a problem with the bullpen carrying the load this heavily at this point in the season, and that's what we're about to get to. So it's going to strain the bullpen. Relying on this bullpen this much, this early, it's a lot of innings. It's a lot of innings they pitched already, and there's still a lot of innings to go. The starters have only had 6 innings pitched in 4 out of the 15 games. 3 of them were Zach Eflin. That's just not going to cut it. We talked about the streak of pitchers not even pitching 5 innings for the last 3 games. These are stat lines when you see 4 1/3, 4 2/3, even 5 1/3. You're like, oh, you're right there. And yes, the Orioles are very cautious with pitchers at this point in the season. They like to take out their starters maybe a little early, especially at this point in the year. But still, you're asking a lot from this bullpen. Felix not being able to pitch multiple innings or back-to-back games will also take a toll on the rest of the team. Again, in that last Toronto game, Batista probably would have been in at some point, probably in the 10th inning. Instead, you can't use him. You have to use somebody else. And I'm not necessarily blaming that reliever because he didn't have that bad of appearance, but ultimately, it's just going to add a strain because you have this key guy, the most key guy in the bullpen, kind of have these limits here and there between innings and appearances. And other guys just have to pick up the slack for those innings and those appearances that he's not able to give it a go. Now, again, the bullpen's been mostly great, at least good. But that can't keep up forever, especially with this heavier workload. Not everyone's going to be Brian Baker, who goes every appearance up until the last one without giving up a run. Not going to be Soto up until the last one where everything was good. Again, you might have those last appearances for each of those guys. Guys that have had a great start to the year, but then how long, they can't do it every single time. So hopefully those guys can go right back to being productive and positive. But it's not guaranteed. They might get a little cold. They might get a little fatigued. It's a worry straining your bullpen this much. But there is some optimism that even with the heavy workload, that can lighten up soon, or at least eventually. Again, Kittredge will be coming back at some point to this pen, and he'll be a fresh arm when he gets there. We've heard positive reports on Kittredge and his rehab. He's even in the mental that he could go right now. I think the Orioles are going to hold him out for probably another month. But at that point, he should be able to get back in the fold. And again, his arm will be fresh at that point. You're also going to have additions of the injured starters, which, again, should just help get starters deeper into games. Getting back Eflin, again, the guy who's pitched 6 innings 3 of the 4 times it's been done for the Orioles this year. Getting back Grayrod, a guy who's really showed that he's the type of guy, when healthy, that can pitch into the 6th, into the 7th. And eventually, a guy like Kyle Bradish, hopefully we get back as well. Again, knock on wood, we've had good reports. And all of that should alleviate the workload, because those are all 3 guys that should be able to pitch at least 6, if not more, most of their starts. And that's going to take some weight and innings off of this bullpen. Then you also have a guy like Kyle Gibson, who, when he gets his chance, could contribute to that. But I also could see the reality that he just contributes more of the same of what we're seeing. 4 2/3, 5 1/3. And I could see that coming more from a Kyle Gibson. We'll see. Maybe he looks great. Maybe he's consistently solid, getting through 6 innings consistently for this team when he gets his chance. But we'll see. Hopefully, also, guys like Sagano and Morden can contribute to longer starts. That's something we just talked about. How Sagano, the more comfortable he gets, he should be able to get deeper into games. Morden, hopefully, has just so much experience that he's able to tweak and change this or that to be able to get deeper into games. Then you also have names like Tyler Wells, Trevor Rogers, maybe even Albert Suarez, if he's able to come back healthy, who could either enter the rotation or the bullpen and help in one of those ways. There's also chances that some moves need to be made. In fact, we're going to talk about one of those moves that did just get made today that is going to help the bullpen some, I believe. But names like Colin Selby and Cionel Perez are running out of time. In fact, I think the move the Orioles just made is going to cost Colin Selby his spot. Again, he was more a taxi squad guy that they brought up when they were able to go to a 4-man rotation. They have this extra spot in the bullpen, so it went to him. I think that our new guy that we'll get to eventually will wind up just taking Colin Selby's spot by tomorrow. Either way, Cionel Perez is certainly going to run out of time eventually if he can't turn it around. We could bring up some arms from the farm. Guy like Cade Stroud, who people are very excited about. A lot of strikeout stuff from this kid. Maybe a little accuracy problem. Sometimes walks guys a little too much. I don't know if we can afford that in this second. But once the starters start getting healthier, I think we have a little more leniency to take a shot on a guy like Cade Stroud, who has an electric arm for this bullpen at some point. Or we could make a trade for another quality veteran reliever. But obviously, I believe that's farther down the line. Maybe not at the trade deadline, but certainly around All-Star break, maybe a little before at earliest. Ultimately, though, I'm still very high on this bullpen. I expect them to pitch really well, even with the higher workload. And like for all the reasons I just said, I expect that high workload to get alleviated a little bit because of certain factors along the way. And the Orioles being able to continue being successful and having this great bullpen, despite the fact that maybe they're overworking their bullpen at this point. So now the next topic we're going to talk about is Gunnar Hard Hitterson. You know I love meshing up names. But Gunnar went 3 for 5 yesterday with a triple. It was really his second good game of his season so far. Obviously missed the first few series. Came back in that Kansas City series and for Arizona. And this was only his third series. So it's good that he's finally seemed to get into the rhythm. Having another multi-hit game was really nice. He's been scorching the ball, though. It seems like every time he makes contact, it's over 100 miles an hour off the bat. The problem is that he's really been hitting everything into the ground this whole time since he's been back. And it seems like every at-bat, it's right into the ground, a negative launch angle. But meanwhile, 104 miles an hour off the bat. So hopefully yesterday was a sign that he's going to start getting balls more elevated and be able to hit more extra base hits. Frankly, his first home run is only a matter of time. Once we get to the preview of next series, I think that's going to come within one of those first 2 games against Cleveland. But I want to save that for when we get to that topic. Once Gunnar starts racking up the extra base hits and home runs, though, this offense will just start clicking more. Naturally, if your leadoff hitter and potentially your best player starts performing better, yes, your whole team's going to probably start performing better. And the lineup's going to have more juice to it. And Rushman in the 2-hole is going to come up with Gunnar on base or a lead more often. And then when you get to the heart of the lineup, the 3, 4, the 5, this lineup is great 1 through 9. And that's a scary part too, because, and not scary for us, scary for the league. Because then, now we looked at it for when Gunnar gets on at the top. But now let's look at it the reverse. When you have Jackson or Urias or one of these guys at the bottom of the lineup who's been consistently getting on base. And then they're on base for Gunnar when he's hitting those extra base hits or home runs. So a lot to be excited about with Gunnar Henderson. It seems like he's still working through some stuff, but it seems like he's like right there, man, right on the verge. And yeah, we thought he was going to have his first home run in Arizona, hit it into the pool. That didn't happen. We thought he was going to do it against Toronto. But really, I know it's coming during this home stretch. I know it. We've seen the signs in front of us, and I believe yesterday was a great sign of things to come, and that home run is right around the corner. Potentially his first at-bat tomorrow. Potentially. All right, gang, so the next topic is we're going to talk about the orange out. The orange out. The Orioles went all orange. It's something we talked about when they announced it in spring training. The all-orange uniforms made their first appearance this past Saturday. Orioles found a way to win in them, too, which obviously getting a win at any time is nice, especially in this tough stretch in the beginning of the year. But it's especially nice if you remember back a couple years ago with the Black City Connect jerseys. The Orioles, I believe, lost their first few games at least in those jerseys. I remember this talk about how, the Orioles can't win in those jerseys. They're bad luck jerseys. That's just juju we do not need right now. So it was beautiful being able to come out of the gates in the all orange and win that game. Essentially, obviously, it might not mean too much, but they really did just look awesome. Especially when they were matched up against the Blue Jays in their all baby blues. Really brings you back to a day before I was even alive. Back in like the 70s when you would see all of these teams have this bright jersey head to toe. And it was cool. It was very cool to see. And I think the guys looked really good. I do. And when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you play good. And while they didn't play the best to start that game, they certainly wound up finding a way to win. There was a little magic, little Orioles magic in those jerseys. And hopefully that's a thing that's only going to continue. So now we're going to talk about a guy we just mentioned, but we didn't mention his name yet. It's the newest Oriole. The Orioles claimed Scott Blewett from the Twins, a right-handed relief pitcher. Despite having a very bad name for a reliever, Blewett, He's an interesting bring-in. He really is. He's only had 33 innings pitched in his 4 years between the Royals and the Twins, but he has a career ERA of 2.18, an ERA this year of 1.93 in only 4 2/3 innings pitched, but still an ERA under 2 right now. He's still just 29 years old, and it seems like despite having below average velocity, not that it's slow, but I think he tops out around like 93, 94, which is below average, especially in today's day. He's got this 3-pitch mix, and it really seems like he has some really good swing and miss stuff, some good chase stuff. If you look at his baseball savant page, there's a lot to like about it, gang. So Scott Blewett, I almost said Chris Blewett. I don't know if there's a Chris Blewett. Somewhere out there, I'm sure there is. But Scott Blewett, unfortunately, has a horrible name as far as a reliever goes in this league. But hopefully, we see some positive things and we see Blewett not blowing it when he gets his chance. Again, I think that the move is for the Orioles to drop... I'm at a loss for the guy. I can't think, guys. I forget. Colin Selby. Colin Selby is the name I was thinking. I was all over the board, gang, with my names. But Colin Selby was who I was thinking. I think that's whose spot Blewett is going to be taking. We'll see. It could be a short run. It could be like a 2-3 appearance stint for Blewett. Again, the Orioles are going to be running probably a 4-man rotation till about the 25th, 26th of this month. So at that point, once they need the 5th starter, that may be the spot that they need. And Blewett might be gone. Maybe he stays in the system. Maybe he leaves. I don't know. But hopefully he performs well while he's here. And who knows? We might have just found our next solid middle reliever. All right, gang. So I want to talk, before we get to the Guardian series and wrap up this episode, about heating up Mayo. And no, I'm not talking about in the kitchen. I'm talking about on the ball field. Coby Mayo finally showing some heat so far this season. Obviously had a rough camp start, or ended not horribly, ended with some all right notes, but obviously was then disappointed. He got cut from camp, didn't make the team, had those comments. There was that whole controversy. His first few games back in AAA this season was not very good, but it seems like he's turned the corner. He didn't get out once in the final 2 games of Norfolk series against Gwinnett. Didn't start the season out best, like I said, especially with the, bad taste in his mouth about getting cut from camp. But he has 2 home runs in his last 2 games. Overall, though, has reached safely in 9 straight plate appearances between 3 games. Possibly a great sign for a guy, too, who has some swing and miss issues at times, and certainly in the major leagues had swing and miss issues. Maybe seems like, I don't know if he's more focused or if maybe he's figured something out along the way. Maybe he's just dominated AAA pitching and this isn't going to translate to the majors at all. I want to take it as a good sign, though, that maybe he's learning to be a little more contact. The power will come. He's a big, strong guy. If you can just make contact and stay off of chasing bad pitches, you're going to do a lot of damage in this league with his kind of raw power. And so far this season, he has fantastic numbers. Again, did not start the season the best, but so far this year in 14 games, he has 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, and 11 walks. Listen, again, maybe he's just figured out AAA pitching, and this won't translate. Or maybe it's a sign of things to come. I've started to turn the corner myself on Coby Mayo. I don't know if you heard it in one of our last episodes or not, but I made the reference to a similarity that I saw on him and Pete Alonso. So if you remember back when he was struggling in camp, I talked about herky-jerky Mayo, and it seemed like he just was had this herky-jerky hitch in his swing. And again, I'm no expert, but it just looked that way. Looked like he was never really ready to swing on the ball until it was too late and the ball was already upon him. It seems like that may have been an overreaction, because then I remembered, or I saw, and I found the similarities in Pete Alonso, who kind of has that same herky-jerkiness. And obviously, Alonso's been one of the best power hitters in baseball for the past few seasons. And it gave me some hope and kind of took the sour taste out of my mouth when it came to Coby Mayo. And trust me, I love Mayo, but Mayo can give you a sour taste in your mouth if it's left out too long. So, right on cue, I think that the Mayo is freshening up. You know, we got some fresh Mayo now in the fridge. And it tastes great. Well, it doesn't taste sour. Okay, there's some clips that could be made making fun of me off of what the last couple things I just said. Let's just kind of leave those in the past. Put those thoughts aside. I'm getting this good feeling on Coby Mayo. Again, there's not really the spot for him right now, but it's a long season. Obviously, injuries happen, and while we've been very injury-prone so far, I feel like probably some more injuries are around the corner at some point for us because that's baseball, gang. That's an MLB season. So Coby Mayo is going to get his chance at one point or another. Certainly the Orioles could even look to make roster moves. If there's a guy underperforming, maybe they give up on Ramon Urias. Maybe they give up on Jorge Mateo. And not necessarily give up on them so much as think it's time to bring Coby up and decide that's the guy to move. And listen, Urias has played great this year. So he's not going to get cut or he's not going to get designated for an assignment. But maybe another team is now higher and more interested in trading for Ramon Urias. And then we can bring up Mayo. Mateo has not had the best start to his season, but he's very streaky. Right now it looks like it could easily be that he's kind of losing his grip on a roster spot. And maybe that's the spot. At the same time, we could blink the next 2 weeks away and Mateo could be one of the hottest guys on the team and be back to looking like a key contributor towards this team being a winning team. And I still love Jorge Mateo. I like Ramon Urias too. I just think I'd rather trade Urias and get back next to nothing and give Coby Mayo his chance than trade Ryan Mountcastle and get back maybe a little more than Urias, because we're still not going to get a king's ransom for Mountcastle or anything. You're not going to bring back a star prospect or anything. You're not going to bring back a star starting pitcher. So at a certain point, I think I'd rather maybe take a shot on a low A-ball guy for Ramon Urias, somebody that's young and has some upside, but a long way to go, and take a shot that way and make the spot there. But we'll see, gang. We'll see. See what happens. Still a lot of time, and I don't think Coby Mayo, outside of an injury to somebody, is going to get called up for at least another couple weeks. Then again, if he keeps performing the way that he's performing now, again, the Orioles are probably going to find a way to get him back on the Major League roster. And we'll see how they do that. All right, so let's quickly, before we head out and end the show, get a little series preview of the Guardian series. Game 1, we got Logan Allen versus Charlie Morton, Uncle Charlie. And I told you that Gunnar might have a home run in his first at-bat tomorrow. That's because Gunnar has only one at-bat against Logan Allen, and it is a home run. Small sample size, but I'm just saying, 1-for-1 with a home run against Allen. Although Allen has pitched very well this season, a 3.6 ERA. Listen, the Guardians are this type of team that they can struggle to hit at times, but they've been known to have some power as well. We really saw that power last season from them. And they have a great pitching staff, at least a great bullpen, and a very competent quality pitching staff as far as starters go. And Logan Allen is just one of those quality starters that they have. Next one is Gavin Williams versus Dean Kramer. Gavin Williams might not know name-wise as much as some of these guys, but Williams has really good stuff. A strikeout pitcher, 14 Ks in his 13 innings this season, but that's between 3 starts. So again, not necessarily pitching the deepest into games, and sometimes the strikeout guys are like that. in order to get a strikeout, you got a lot more deeper counts, which runs the pitch count higher. So we'll see strikeouts probably from Williams, but hopefully the Orioles can run him out of the game after just a few innings by getting to him. Gunnar also has a home run in one of his 2 at-bats against Williams. Jackson Holliday also has 2 at-bats against Williams, one of which for a home run. So who knows? Not a large sample size by any means, not just for those guys, but really anybody against those guys. But ultimately, those are the top performers in the small sample sizes that this team has against those two. Now, Kramer is going to start that game, and he's been limited but successful in his history against Cleveland, okay? Against the Cleveland hitters, it's not a deep history, but he's been fairly successful. So, ultimately, you have a decent feeling maybe Dean gives his best start that night, and I kind of got that feeling that Dino might give his best performance so far this year in that game too. I don't know why I have that feeling, but I really do. Ultimately, though, Dean needs to show it because his time is running out as far as other starters getting back healthy. And again, eventually you're going to have to make spots for them. Dean's safe for the moment for the next week or two. Then we'll see. So you need to start putting together good starts. In 2 of his 3 starts this year, they have not gone well. But I have a feeling this may be one of those Dean Kramer starts that you really are like, wow, this is the good Dean Kramer. This is the really good Dean Kramer. So I got a good feeling, gang. I really do. I got a good feeling. Then in Game 3, you got Tanner Bibby versus Tamayaki Sagano. I may have butchered the first name a second time for this episode at least. But Bibby versus Sagano. Bibby very talented, although he has pitched to a 4.4 ERA so far this season. 10 Ks in his 3 starts, so not really blowing it by guys either. But certainly he's a solid, competent starter. I was very high on Bibby coming into this year, so I would not be surprised for Bibby to really have a good game in that start and the Orioles to struggle a bit. Hopefully, though, Sagano can make the Guardians just as uncomfortable and have his best start maybe of the season. We've seen it coming. We saw, again, his first start, he was very nervous. Second start, he looked really solid. Third start and first home start, he looked a little more nervous, but a little less than that first time, but still nervous. Hopefully this time we see the more comfortable, more confident Sagano in his second home start. And hopefully we can get at least the series victory, gang. I didn't see the numbers anywhere. We talked last episode about how after 4 series of the season, the Orioles had yet to win a series. And that was the first time since 2010 that's happened. Now we're at 5 series that they haven't won a series. And who knows how long it's been. Maybe it was just a little before that because those were dark ages. Maybe it wasn't till the 80s or since the 80s. I don't know. I didn't see it posted anywhere, gang. Ultimately, though, hopefully, finally, these Orioles can get a series win. You know I bet the Orioles every single game. I'm thinking of taking them in the series as well this series just because it has to come, gang. We have to win a series, and I really think with these pitching matchups, despite the fact that they are talented on Cleveland's side and they have a very good bullpen, I just have the feeling that this may be the series that we finally break through, win at least 2 of the 3, and again, maybe see Charlie Morton's best start as an Oriole so far, maybe see Dino Kramer's best start of the season so far, and hopefully see the best Sagano we've seen so far as well. So, gang, that is going to wrap up our episode. Another fantastic episode, talking Orioles baseball. Absolutely love it, gang. Fun day, fun episode. We'll be back Thursday with our next episode. Make sure, again, you check us out every Monday and Thursday. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and X. Follow, like, all comment, questions, whatever it is, we will put it on the show and add it to the show. Add some interaction. We do want to start doing that. Hopefully, we have a lot of good stuff coming throughout this summer. I'm hoping to get some guests, talk about them, talk back and forth with some other Orioles fanatics. But again, all you got to do is leave a comment, a question on any one of our pages, and we will put it on the show and talk about it, gang. So again, fantastic episode. So glad you joined us. Hope you had fun too. This was episode 49 of Talkin Orioles Baseball Podcast. I appreciate you listening. Let's go.
Baseball in the